We're better than this.
This week, an Issue Is exclusive. Governor Gavin Newsom on LGBTQ rights.
My heart is broken.
On Donald Trump.
Donald Trump's a T-Rex.
On Ron DeSantis.
I don't like the guy.
On a gun safety constitutional amendment.
What the hell else are we going to do to save our kids?
And what question made him say this?
I love that you bring this up.
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Alex Michelson. We've come to the Glendale Unified School District boardroom, the site of recent chaos that led Governor Newsom to come visit.
Violent clashes over how to talk about LGBTQ issues.
Stop asking little children what they sexually identify as.
This is hate. This is hate.
This week, the governor meeting with district leaders and then sitting down for an exclusive and extensive interview with us.
Well, Governor Newsom, welcome back to The Issue Is. Good to see you.
Good to be back.
So we're here in this school board meeting room where we saw a lot of chaos and a lot of anger recently on the issue of LGBTQ rights for kids. You met with some of the officials here. What was your message to them, and what's your message to the kids here?
Well, I met with parents, I met with parent leaders, I met with the superintendent, the principal. It's not just about LGBTQ issues, it's about trust. It's about public trust, public education, about the weaponization of grievance. It's about so much more, and unfortunately it's come here to Glendale, and it's not unique. We're seeing this all across this country. Organized interest, disorganized interest, and legitimate parental concerns of what are we teaching our kids, and are you telling me the truth? And so we've got a lot of work to do to address these fundamental divides, but trust is at the core of it.
The issue of trans kids is new for a lot of people to process. Obviously the same-sex marriage argument's been around for a lot longer, 20 years ago almost, when you first started marrying people, and the trans issue is hard for people to process. How do you think the state should handle that issue, and how should people talk about that issue in school?
Well, with humility, with humanity, putting it in perspective. You know, a country of 330 plus million people, maybe roughly 1.6 million people identify as trans, 0.5% of the population. So a little humility. At the same time, I think you're right. I think the trans issue has come on as a more divisive issue in the context particularly of sports, where it's also been weaponized, and issues around pronouns. I remember the first time I was on Zoom, and all of a sudden I saw these different pronouns, and that even took me, I was like, what's this? I didn't fully understand that. I think a combination of those factors, the weaponization of grievance and dehumanization that I see of politicians that are exploiting this, like Ron DeSantis notably, but not unique to DeSantis, have also exacerbated this.
On the issue of sports, which you bring up, and I know you point out the fact that this actually isn't that big of an issue statistically in the state, but politically, clearly it's a big issue for a lot of people. There was a new poll that came out that showed that 70% of people don't think it's fair for people to be in sports without the gender they're assigned to at birth. How does the state handle that? And what do you
Never has
agree?
so much attention been, I mean, so few people, never has more attention ever been placed. I've not, in my 30, 40 years of sort of deeper consciousness around social issues, I've never seen more attention paid to so few people. I just asked my staff a simple question. I said, the NC2A, I imagine there's hundreds, maybe thousands of trans athletes. There must be, for all the amount of attention and scrutiny that's being provided. Turns out there are about 520,000 NC2A athletes, 226 or so thousand women. There's a handful, 35 or so. I mean, put it in perspective. I get why people are fearful. I get why people, and I understand, intimately understand it. I've got 4 young kids that are deeply involved in sports. I understand that. Again, you approach it with some humility and sensitivity, with some humanity. These kids are more likely than anything else to commit suicide. For the grace of God, go any of us as caregivers or parents. I don't like the weaponization, that the assault on the community. And so it's finding some common ground. In the state of California in 2013, a decade ago, well before I got here, established a framework, a foundation in terms of the fundamental rights for trans women, trans men, to participate in sports. Biden administration is trying to find some flexibility And that's been a rulemaking process that's wildly controversial in trying to approximate the answer to your question. I don't have the answer to the question. No one does. NC2A is trying to work through this. But we have to come at it with some humility and humanity. And I repeat that because it's not there. It's not present in our current public discussion.
You know, it's Pride Month, and you're taking some of your time this month to go to Disneyland with Bob Iger.
Yes.
After we know that basically Disney made a decision to have some people not go to Florida and stay here in California, and some of their employees, because of Florida's policies. What's your message to Bob Iger and the folks at Disney?
Values matter. Our values are universal. We're a universal state. We don't tolerate our differences. We celebrate them, and that's good business. That's my message.
And what's the message you have at Pride Night to all of those folks?
Just with love. You know, we all want to be loved. We all need to be loved. And you know what? My heart is broken. I grew up in San Francisco. My first taste of politics was the early memories around the Briggs Initiative in the 70s. And there was a guy named Harvey Milk, Tom Amiano, who eventually I ran against for mayor. These young leaders that had the courage to stand up and fight for LGBTQ community before anyone else. I mean, Harvey Milk's life was taken in that cause. And I thought we were past it when Ronald Reagan said, you know what, you can't catch gay like you can measles. Even Reagan said that and said, that stop the demonization of teachers and what's going on in the schools. And we defeated the Briggs Initiative, only to see Ron DeSantis weaponize it again in the Don't Say Gay bill and all these Republican governors. I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime. I mean, it's remarkable what's happening here in Glendale. It's happening in the state of California, let alone the United States of America. We're better than this. Where's our humanity? Where's our decency? Where's our sense of commonality, the commonwealth? And at the end of the day, divorce is not an option. People think differently, act differently, they love differently, they worship, they have different faiths differently. You know what? We have to define the terms of our lives in the context of other people's lives and decisions. And what's happening in the gay community makes me sick to my stomach. It really does. So I'm standing taller than ever in affirming people's faith and devotion to the cause they hold dearest, and that means they love differently or look differently, then I'm going to celebrate that.
And you get a trip to Disneyland out of it. Do you have a favorite Disneyland ride?
Well, I'll let you know. I haven't been there in a long time.
Okay.
I don't even remember.
Okay.
Is Space Mountain still open?
Space Mountain's still there.
Okay,
Splash Mountain is now
was
getting
the
closed.
One
Yeah,
okay. I can't wait.
Yeah.
This is fun. I'm not sure they're going to allow me on a ride, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
We're talking to Governor Gavin Newsom. You made a lot of headlines this week when you talked with Sean Hannity on Fox News Channel.
This is a tough question for you.
I don't think it will be. Well, let's find out.
All right.
You've made no secret of the fact that you watch Fox News Channel almost every night. Did it feel like talking back to the TV?
No.
Was it fun for you?
I think we need more of that.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you got to get it. We're in these separate silos, and we're just whatever you focus on, you find more of. We're nothing but a mirror of our consistent thoughts. And so, my father-in-law and others are just focused 24/7 on that echo chamber. Folks, others may be in different echo chambers. At the end of the day, we got to get outside these silos. I mean, so much of what's happened here in Glendale is a consequence of that. And so I was willing to at least, take the risk of, being on the receiving end of a lot of critique and questioning, because I think it's important. I hope the other side does that. I hope Republicans start doing that in terms of finding progressive audiences as well, because this is just not working anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's exhausting. Yeah. I mean, it's really exhausting. I have no disrespect for people that disagree with me, or even the people that try to recall me. I mean, they love their kids like I love my kids. They love their community. They want to be protected, respected, connected to something bigger than themselves. Come on, man. We got to get through this and over this. And so that's why I went on.
Did you mention your father-in-law?
Yeah.
He's apparently a Fox News viewer.
We know you
do have some conservatives in your family and friend group.
We do, lots.
Did you hear from them? What did they say about the whole thing?
They were glad I did it. They said, good for you for going on.
Yeah.
And they still want clarification on a few things and how I could say this or that and defend this or that. But they weren't aware of some fundamental facts, because they were never treated to those facts. 13.1 million jobs since the Biden administration started. The fact that it's more than the last 3 Republican administrations combined times 6 in terms of job creation. They're not aware of those facts. And we're energy dependent, more energy independent than any time in the last 70 years under the Biden administration. They're not aware of those facts because those facts are not shared on those networks, and they challenged me in private to prove those facts, not just hear it asserted in Hannity interview.
Well, let me challenge you on one of the things you talked about, which was homelessness, right?
Yes.
You mentioned the fact that you own the homelessness issue, which is something you've been talking about for a long time. What exactly does that mean? Because I saw you referenced
we have to do more and better.
2005 and Arnold Schwarzenegger being governor.
Well, I was just mentioning that we've had more people in our homeless count in the past than we have today. I mean, this is not a new issue, is my point.
Yeah.
This has been around decades in California, decades in the making. You can't turn it around overnight. What we did is we invited a different conversation in the state. The state's never been involved in homeless policy. I cannot impress upon this more. People act like they know that, but they don't, I think, fully understand and embrace the fact that the state was not involved in homeless policy until a few years ago, until we all came to the deep and obvious understanding that we have to do things differently, that cities can't do it alone. And that's why we put unprecedented resources now with new unprecedented accountability. And now I want results, because you want results. The public demands results.
Right.
It's not just about spending more money. They want to see results. And the point is, we're not victims of that. And when I say responsibility, it means elected leaders, every single one of them, school board members, city council members, city administrators, members of the board of supervisors, mayors, all of you, look in the mirror. We're all accountable at the end of the day to solving this thing, and it can be solved, but we have to act with a sense of urgency, not just accountability.
But there are a lot of people that look at the results and see that they don't see results.
That's
they
what I'm
see an
saying.
increase in spending, and they see more homeless people on the street, and they say, this Democratic policy isn't working. What do you say to them?
Democratic policy or Republican policies. There's not a part of the state that doesn't have a challenge.
Yeah.
You have very conservative parts of the state that they're challenged in extremes.
Yeah.
You have policies and different approaches that are localized. Some are working, some are not. That's why we have accountability plans for the first time ever. We just put those into place. That's for the first time ever. We're requiring not just accountability, but we're funding no longer failure, we're funding progress. We have 6 baseline measurable goals for the first time. I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the results. I'm not seeing it either. I'm not the mayor of Glendale. I'm not the mayor of LA. I'm not the mayor of San Francisco. I'm not the mayor of 482 plus cities and 58 counties. I am the governor at the end of the day. And so my job is to organize and to standardize, create flexibility, provide supports, and to make sure that we're all being held to account and make sure we're aligning in our strategies and fund success, no longer fund failure. 100% right. What's happening in the streets is unacceptable, but there is progress being made in parts of this state, demonstrable progress, and I expect to see more.
Up next, Newsom's push to potentially criminally charge Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. We're sitting down with Governor Gavin Newsom on the same week Donald Trump is formally charged with mishandling classified info.
Do you have anything you want to say on that?
Nothing more I can add, except it's a hell of a time for America, and it's going to be a tough few months as we work through this.
But you still think he beats DeSantis?
Oh, I think he cleans his clock. I think he does. I mean, I think DeSantis is, I think he's an afterthought at this stage. I think guys like Tim Scott are more interesting to focus on. Nikki Haley beginning and Scott to break a little bit from DeSantis and others in terms of their rhetoric around this indictment are indicative of, I think, a different pathway to being the backup to Donald Trump. But Donald Trump's a T-Rex in the Republican primary. Outside of that, we know what happened a few years ago. Biden cleans his clock in the general.
Well, you're heading to Disneyland, but you just did the Jurassic Park reference there.
I'm in trouble.
So very
I'll try
much.
to fix it.
Yeah. Let's talk for a moment about Ron DeSantis, somebody you bring up a lot.
He has a real serious fixation on the state of Florida.
We know he flew migrants here. You met with the migrants.
I met with a sheriff
Yeah.
that wants to press charges with him just yesterday from Texas.
Well,
who
talk to us about
was
that.
disgusted by what Ron DeSantis did, coming into his jurisdiction under false pretense, deceiving kids, not just adults, by sending them on an airplane to an island, Martha's Vineyard. In California, the exact same circumstances
Yeah.
were advanced. It was remarkable comparing notes. He wants to pursue criminal charges,
Yeah.
and we are investigating whether or not the similarities and the contours of consideration allow us to do the same, because we believe in accountability and we think this is wrong.
When we spoke about a year ago outside the White House, I asked you if you had ever spoken to Ron DeSantis, and you said no. You ever met Ron DeSantis or talked to him?
No.
Has that changed at all?
No.
Is there any thought that maybe give him a call and say, WTF, dude? is there, because I know you work with governors around the country and
I have
and
great
coordinate
relationships
stuff.
with
Yeah.
Republicans, Democrats. You may have heard me on Hannity last night talking
Right.
about my relationship with President Trump.
Right.
And if a Democrat from California could have a relationship with President Trump, I'm happy to have a relationship with anybody. I don't like the guy, though. He's a bully. He demonizes. He finds vulnerable populations and he exploits them. Not my kind of human being. And I'll tell you what, I mean, one thing that I could connect with Sean Hannity on is he's a person of faith. I grew up in the church. There's no teaching in the world. There's no Bible. There's no religion that somehow condones using human beings.
Yeah.
Like Ron DeSantis uses human beings as pawns to advance a political agenda or advance a political career. I find him disgraceful and a character level. Not just the actions he's taken on migrants on a consistent basis, but the actions he takes all the time to demean and belittle vulnerable communities.
I'm proposing the 28th Amendment to the United States Constitution.
When we come back, news on the governor's push to change the Constitution.
In this country, we do have the power to change things.
Governor Gavin Newsom recently proposed the 28th Amendment to the Constitution. It would raise the minimum age to buy a gun to 21, mandate universal background checks, institute waiting periods to buy guns, and ban assault weapons for civilians. Passing this would require 33 state legislatures to get on board. That means at least 13 currently controlled by Republicans.
The 28th Amendment you proposed, which would be a constitutional amendment to change gun rights in this country. You've had a lot of support in the first few days of this, over 40,000 donors, which, by the way, would get you a spot on the Republican nominating if you want to do the Republican
count
debate.
me out of that platform, but again, it might be some fun being on the Republican platform.
What's next, though, for that fight? Because there's some critics who say, look, that's not realistic to make that actually happen.
What's realistic about what we're doing having any damn impact? What's their alternative? I mean, seriously, what's their alternative? You have federal judges in the state of California, Judge Benitez, Judge Nelson, that have thrown out. Judge Benitez, as you recall, said the AR-15 platform's nothing more than just a Swiss Army knife. He threw out our assault weapons ban as unconstitutional.
Right.
You had Judge Nelson, who talked about the revolutionary teenagers that were out there, and so he threw out our ban, saying you have to at least be 21 to be able to purchase a long gun, as unconstitutional. They're rolling back the rights that blue states have advanced. What the hell else are we going to do to save our kids? This is not normal. We're on pace to have a record number of mass killings in this country. And what are people promoting except status quo ante? So you know what? At least this is something to be for, and the overwhelming majority of Americans support what we just proposed. So I'm not giving up on it.
Yeah.
California, I hope, will be the first state, and I'm going to be around for the next few decades, maybe not in elected office, most likely not in elected office, but as a parent and as someone who believes in this country, as a patriot that believes this is unacceptable and we're better than this.
Have you heard from other states that are saying, yes, we're going to
I've
sign up
heard from
for
other
this?
legislatures, legislative leaders across the states. I'm working with legislative leaders, mayors. We're going to be working across the country to kind of encourage people through the power of emulation. Hopefully California moves first to move this forward. I'm not naive. This could take decades.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm not going to do is roll over as a victim of this circumstance. And at least we have something to be for, and I hope people go to that petition and sign it.
When we come back, Newsom's passion project, now bigger than the Peace Corps.
You are all living testaments to inspiration.
Governor Gavin Newsom is overseeing a first-of-its-kind program in California inspired by Sergeant Shriver and JFK's Peace Corps. encourages young Californians to serve their communities via the College Corps, Job Corps, and Climate Corps. More are now serving here in California than the entire U.S. Peace Corps combined.
I just want to give you some credit. I think the California College Corps, Climate Corps, and Job Corps is one of the most impressive things that the state of California is doing. I know it's a passion project for you. Can you sort of talk about what you hope other states learn from that and what that means for you?
I love that you bring this up for a different reason. Everything we just talked about in terms of just, this, that, and everything else, the deeper question is, what are we going to do to define the terms of our future in terms of shared experiences? What are we going to do to soften the edges? You talk about DeSantis and Hannity, all these things and all this division. It's about shared experiences, and it's about people doing the thing that uniquely binds them together, and that's just being citizens, active, not inert citizens, engaged in their community, the life of their city, our state, and our nation, and the world we're trying to build. And it's in the spirit of Sar Shriver, the spirit of the Peace Corps, and the fact that California has more volunteers through this organized effort than the entire Peace Corps is a point of deep pride. These people haven't gotten the cynical message. They're not paying attention to these school board meetings. They're paying attention to how they can help support their community, not the loudest voices in the room, but those quiet voices, those real leaders every single day in the community, the real heroes that don't get on TV, that don't get the attention on Twitter. And I'm really proud of these programs, and I'm really grateful you've taken some time to even learn about them and to highlight them.
Thank you very much, Governor. Thank you for being so generous with your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you as well. And the Job Corps stuff is really, really great.
I love it.
I think more people need to know about that.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.